days before Thanksgiving, I was in my Austin apartment, hunched over my laptop, tweaking a campaign banner for a client. The smell of coffee filled the air, and I was in that sweet spot where ideas just flow. Then my phone buzzed. Mom's name lit up the screen, and my stomach did a little flip. We hadn't talked in weeks, and something about her calling now felt off. I picked up, my voice soft. "Hey, Mom?" A long silence stretched out, like she was swallowing words too heavy to say. Then she spoke, her voice shaky, almost a whisper. "Chloe, I don't think you should come home for Thanksgiving this year." My fingers froze on the keyboard. The room seemed to tilt. "What are you talking about?" I asked, barely keeping my voice steady. Another pause, longer this time. "David's parents are coming," she said. "They don't want you there." David, my stepdad since I was 11, had parents who'd never warmed to me. They'd look right through me at family dinners, like I was a ghost. But this was a new kind of hurt. "We always do Thanksgiving together," I said, my throat tightening. "Every year, Mom, since Dad died. It's our thing." Her sigh crackled through the phone, heavy with something I couldn't name. "Chloe, it's not that simple. They're talking about their will. If we stay close to you, they'll cut David and Ryan out. I can't let that happen to them." Ryan was David's son, my stepbrother, 2 years older than me. My heart pounded, each beat like a hammer. "So this is about money?" I snapped, my voice louder than I meant. "It's not just money," Mom said, too quickly. "They think you're not really part of the family. I told them we hardly talk anymore." The words hit like a slap. She'd already started erasing me. "You want me to pretend I don't exist?" I asked, my voice shaking now. "Just for Thanksgiving," she pleaded. "Please, Chloe, try to understand." I couldn't. The phone felt like it was burning my hand. "No," I said, sharp and final, and hung up. I sank onto the couch, staring at the blank screen, my chest aching like someone had carved out a piece of me. All those years, all those promises Mom made after Dad's accident. She'd just traded them for a clause in someone else's will. That call from Mom tore open wounds I thought I'd stitched up long ago. I was 6 when Dad died, crushed in a factory accident on his way to pick me up from kindergarten. The world felt like it cracked in half that day. Mom and I were left in a drafty Portland apartment, the kind where the heater rattled more than it warmed. But Mom made it enough. She'd spend hours with me at Thanksgiving, rolling out dough for pumpkin pies, taping paper leaves to the windows. "You're my everything, Chloe," she'd say, pulling me close. Those words were my anchor through the grief. Everything shifted when I was 11. Mom met David at a local craft fair. He was a quiet mechanic, all calloused hands and few words, a widower with a son, Ryan, who was 13. I was thrilled at first, a new family, maybe even a brother. When we moved into David's house in a leafy Beaverton suburb, I thought it was the start of something good. The place was bigger than anything Mom and I ever had, with a real backyard and a garage that smelled of oil and but it didn't take long to realize I wasn't stepping into a home, just a house where I didn't belong. Ryan had a room decked out, with a gaming PC, posters of bands I'd never heard of, and a shiny skateboard. I got a cramped space off the laundry room, with a slanted ceiling that made it feel like the walls were closing in. David was polite, always asking about school, but his eyes never lingered on me, like I was a puzzle he didn't care to solve. Ryan's grandparents, David's parents, were the worst. They'd roll in every weekend, arms loaded with gifts for Ryan, new sneakers, a drone, even concert tickets once. For me, a tight smile, maybe a hello if I was lucky. I was 12 when I overheard them in the living room, their voices low but clear. "Chloe's too rough around the edges," his grandmother said. Girls without fathers usually are." I stood frozen in the hallway, my hands shaking. I told Mom later, my voice small. She just sighed, chopping carrots for dinner. "They're set in their ways, sweetie. Don't take it personally." Ryan and I had our moments early on. We'd sneak cookies from the jar, play video games when David wasn't home, but by the time we hit our teens, he started pulling away. He'd roll his eyes at my thrift store jackets, call me the tag-along when his friends were over. I'd catch him smirking when his grandparents ignored me, like he enjoyed watching me fade into the background. I kept quiet, hoping Mom would step in, see how much it hurt. She didn't. She was too busy keeping David happy, keeping the new family intact. The real fracture came when I was 14. David's parents had left an old pocket watch on the mantel, a family heirloom from some great-grandfather. Ryan and I were horsing around in the living room, chasing each other over a dumb bet about who could eat more popcorn. I bumped the mantel, and the watch hit the floor, its glass face shattering. Ryan went pale, then pointed at me. "She did it!" he yelled. His grandparents stormed in, their faces twisted with rage. "You reckless girl," his grandfather shouted. "This is why you don't belong here." I tried to explain it was an accident, that we were both messing around, but their eyes were locked on me like Ryan hadn't even been in the room. David stood in the doorway, arms crossed, saying nothing. Mom looked at me, her lips pressed tight, and I waited for her to defend me. She just turned away, picking up the broken pieces. They sent me to live with my Aunt Nora for 2 months, saying I needed to learn respect. Ryan stayed, of course, his grandparents fussing over him like nothing had happened. When I came back, the house felt colder, like I was a guest who'd overstayed. I'd lie awake at night, replaying Mom's silence, wondering when she'd stopped being the woman who called me her everything. Ryan never apologized. Instead, he'd whisper to his friends about that time Chloe got banished, like it was a joke. I stopped trying to fit in after that. I counted the days until I could leave, promising myself I'd never let anyone make me feel that small again. High school dragged on, each year a little heavier. I threw myself into art classes, sketching in notebooks until my fingers cramped, dreaming of a life far from Beaverton. Mom was there, but not really, always distracted, always smoothing things over with David or Ryan's grandparents. The promise she'd made after Dad died, to always put me first, had slipped through her fingers. By the time I turned 18, I knew I wasn't just leaving a house, I was leaving a family that had already left me behind. When I left Beaverton at 18, I carried a beat-up suitcase, a full scholarship to the University of Texas in Austin, and a heart bruised but determined. Mom didn't come to the bus station. David gave me a nod like I was a coworker clocking out. Only Ava, my 16-year-old half-sister from Dad's second marriage, showed up, pressing a tiny sketchbook into my hands. "Draw something amazing," she whispered, "and text me when you get there." Her words were the only warmth I took with me. Austin greeted me with blistering heat and wide-open skies. I rented a shoebox room near campus, the kind where the AC buzzed like a dying fly. To make ends meet, I worked nights at a quirky bakery, kneading dough and boxing up cupcakes until my arms ached. Every penny I spent came from my own sweat. Tuition was covered, but life wasn't. I threw myself into my advertising major, soaking up classes on branding and campaign strategy. I'd always loved sketching, but I discovered I had a knack for turning ideas into stories that stuck with people. Late nights in the library, I'd draft mock ads, dreaming of a life where I called the shots. In my sophomore year, I met Mia, a whip-smart classmate with a contagious laugh and a dad who ran Bright Pulse, a scrappy ad tech startup. Mia wasn't the trust fund type. She worked as hard as I did, juggling classes and freelance gigs. We bonded over a group project, designing a viral campaign for a local coffee shop. Our pitch got shared across campus, and the shop's sales spiked. Afterward, Mia pulled me aside, her eyes bright. "Chloe, you're a natural. Want to intern at Bright Pulse? We could use someone who thinks like you." I said yes before she finished the sentence. At Bright Pulse, I started small, tweaking ad copy, sketching storyboards, but 3 months in, I pitched a bold idea. A social media campaign for a local brewery, using short, quirky videos tied to Austin's music scene. It was a risk, but Mia's dad greenlit it. The campaign exploded, racking up millions of views and doubling the brewery's online orders. Bright Pulse's clients started asking for the intern with the big ideas. By my senior year, I was leading projects, my name whispered in meeting rooms. After graduation, Mia's dad offered me a full-time gig as creative director. At 22, I moved into a modest Austin apartment, still driving the same rusty hatchback from college. Bright Pulse grew fast, and I was at the heart of it, crafting campaigns that landed us features in ad magazines, one for a sustainable fashion brand, a series of raw, honest influencer stories, won an industry award. Blogs called me a young trailblazer in digital advertising. I didn't let it go to my head. I still cooked cheap stir-fries every night, saved every extra dollar. Success wasn't about flash for me. It was about proving I didn't need David's house or Mom's approval to matter. Work became my refuge, but it didn't erase the ache. I'd see families at the bakery, laughing over pastries, and feel a pang for the Thanksgivings Mom and I used to share. Her hands dusted with flour, my giggles as we shaped pie crusts. I kept in touch with Ava, texting her my sketches or calling when I missed her voice. She was the only thread tying me to the past, the only one who never made me feel like an outsider. But Mom, David, Ryan, they were radio silence. I told myself I didn't need them, that I was building something better, and for a while, I believed it. I never expected to hear from Mom again, not after I left. But 2 years ago, my phone rang while I was mocking up a client pitch. Her name on the screen stopped me cold. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Her voice was thin, frayed. "Chloe, David got laid off. The shop closed. We're drowning in the mortgage. No hello, no how's my daughter, just a plea." I closed my eyes, picturing Ava still living in that house. I couldn't let her lose it. "I'll help," I said, my voice flat. From then on, I wired money every month, no questions asked. Not for Mom or David, but for the kid's sister who'd never turned her back on me. I didn't tell anyone, not even Mia. I just kept working, kept sending checks, kept hoping that maybe, just maybe, Mom would see I wasn't the disposable one. That hope was a quiet flicker, burning low but stubborn, until that Thanksgiving call snuffed it out. For 2 years, I sent money to Mom's account every month like clockwork. It started after that call, the one where her voice sounded like it was unraveling. David had lost his job at the auto shop and the mortgage payments were swallowing them whole. I was 27, grinding away at Bright Pulse, my days packed with client pitches and late-night edits. But when Mom asked for help, I didn't hesitate, not because I owed her or David anything. God knows they'd never given me much, but because of Ava. My little sister was still in that Beaverton house, finishing high school, dreaming of college. I couldn't let her lose the only stability she had. Each transfer stung a little. It wasn't the money itself. I'd worked hard, saved enough to live comfortably, but the silence that followed. No thank you texts, no calls to check in, just a void where gratitude should have been. I'd log into my bank app, see the funds vanish, and wonder if Mom even noticed who was keeping their house afloat. Still, I kept sending the money, month after month, telling myself it was but deep down there was another hope, small and foolish, that maybe this would make Mom see me, not the kid she could push aside, but someone worth keeping close. I wanted her to look at those payments and remember the girl she used to call her everything. I never told anyone about it. Not Mia, not my friends, not even Ava. It was my private way carried quietly. At work, I'd lose myself in campaigns, crafting ads that made people feel something. Connection, hope, joy. Ironic, isn't it? I could sell those feelings to strangers but couldn't find them in my own family. Some nights I'd sit in my apartment, scrolling through old photos of Mom and me from when I was little, her smile wide as we carved pumpkins. I'd wonder when she stopped fighting for me, when I became the one she could sacrifice. Then came that Thanksgiving call, the one that shattered everything. I was in my kitchen, sketching ideas for a holiday campaign, when Mom's words hit. "Don't come home. David's parents don't want you there." It wasn't just that she banned me from dinner, from the holiday we'd always shared. It was that she asked me to disappear, to pretend I didn't exist, all to protect David and Ryan's place in some inheritance. After all those months of sending money, of quietly holding their world together, I was still the one she could erase, the one who didn't count. I sat there after hanging up, the phone cold in my hand, my sketchpad forgotten. All that time, I'd thought my help might mean something, might carve out a place for me in Mom's heart, even if it was small. But that call laid it bare. To her, to David, to his parents, I was just a name to scrub out for the sake of a will. The money I'd sent, the hope I'd clung to, it hadn't changed a thing. I wasn't their daughter, their family. I was a transaction, and now, not even that. The hurt wasn't loud or fiery. It was heavy, like a stone settling in my chest. I'd given them so much, not just money, but pieces of myself, and they'd taken it all without a second thought. That night I didn't cry. I just stared out my window at the Austin skyline, the city lights blurring, and realized I was done. Done hoping, done giving, done waiting for a family that didn't want me. The morning after Mom's call, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My chest still ached, but it wasn't the raw, jagged pain of the night before. It was something quieter, resolute. I was done. Done with the money, the silence, the hope that Mom or David would ever choose me. I opened my banking app, my fingers steady, and canceled every auto transfer to their mortgage account. No warning, no explanation. I didn't owe them one. For the first time, I felt like I was taking back a piece of myself they'd held hostage. I called Ava, my voice still shaky from the weight of it all. "Mom told me not to come home for Thanksgiving," I said. "David's parents don't want me there. They're worried about their will." There was a long pause, then Ava's voice came through, sharp and fierce. "Are you serious? That's disgusting. If you're not welcome, I'm not going either." My throat tightened, tears pricking my eyes. Ava, my 16-year-old sister, was the only one who'd never turned her back on me. Her loyalty felt like a lifeline, pulling me out of the dark. "We'll make our own Thanksgiving," she said, her voice brighter now. "You and me, in Austin. Deal?" I laughed, a small, broken sound, but it was real. "Deal," I said. That was when I knew I wasn't alone, not completely. I had Ava, and maybe that was enough to start something new. I invited a few friends who were staying in Austin for the holiday. Mia, my work partner at Bright Pulse, promised to bring her famous pecan pie. Ethan, a college buddy with a knack for storytelling, said he'd haul over some board games. Sophie, another friend from my university days, offered to whip up her mom's cornbread recipe. Ava took a bus from Portland, arriving with a slightly charred sweet potato casserole she'd made herself. "I tried," she grinned, holding up the dish. She also handed me a small woven bracelet, its threads blue and gold. "For our new tradition," she said softly. I slipped it on, my heart swelling. We gathered in my apartment, the air filled with the smell of roasted vegetables and warm spices. Ava strung up fairy lights she'd found at a thrift store, their soft glow making the place feel alive. We cooked together, laughed over Ethan's terrible turkey carving skills, and swapped stories about everything and nothing. Sophie played a playlist of old folk songs, and Mia led an impromptu dance-off that had us all in stitches. Ava and I teamed up for a board game, giggling like we were kids again. At dinner, we went around the table, each saying something we were thankful for. When it was my turn, I looked at their faces, people who weren't tied to me by blood but who showed up, who saw me. "I'm thankful for this," I said, my voice catching. "For all of you." Ava squeezed my hand under the table. Later, we raised glasses of sparkling cider, toasting to new beginnings. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was chasing a family I'd lost. I was building one right here, with people who made me feel like I belonged. That night, as Ava crashed on my couch and the others headed home, I sat by the window, the bracelet still on my wrist. Thanksgiving wasn't what it used to be, but it was something better. Something mine. I didn't know what came next, but for now, I had this moment, and it was enough. A month after Thanksgiving, I was in my apartment, reviewing a campaign draft, when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I checked the peephole, and my breath caught. Mom, David, and Ava stood outside, their faces a mix of nerves and determination. My heart raced, part anger, part curiosity. What could they possibly want now? I opened the door, arms crossed, bracing myself. Ava stepped forward first, her eyes soft but steady. "I know this is a lot," she said, "but they need to talk to you. Please, just hear them out." I looked at her, my sister, the one who'd chosen me when no one else did. For her, I nodded and let them in. Mom clutched her purse, her knuckles white, and David stood stiffly like he was waiting for a verdict. The air felt heavy, charged with years of unspoken words. Mom spoke first, her voice trembling. "Chloe, I was wrong about Thanksgiving. I put David's parents and their money above you, my own daughter. I betrayed you, and I can't undo that hurt." Her eyes were red, brimming with tears, but I stayed quiet, waiting. David cleared his throat, his gaze fixed on the floor. "I'm to blame too," he said. "I let my parents dictate everything. My choices, my family. I didn't stand up for you, not once. That's my failure." I felt a knot in my chest loosen, just a fraction, but I wasn't ready to let go of the walls I'd built. "Why now?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Because I stopped the payments? Because you're scared of losing Ava too?" Ava's eyes flickered with worry, but she didn't interrupt. Mom shook her head. "It's not about the money," she said. "When you stopped sending it, I wasn't angry about the house. I was terrified because I realized you'd finally given up on me, on us." David looked up, meeting my eyes for the first time. "I called my parents last week," he said. "I told them I'm done hiding you, done pretending you're not part of this family. If they want to cut me out of their will, let them. You're worth more than that." His voice was firm, different from the quiet man I'd known. Mom reached into her bag and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. "We refinanced the house," she said. "We're not here for your money, Chloe. We're here for you." I opened the folder, bank statements, a new mortgage plan, all in their names. It was real. They weren't begging for a bailout, still. My guard stayed up. "This doesn't erase what you did," I said, my voice low. "All those years, you let me feel like I didn't matter. Thanksgiving was just the final straw." Mom's face crumpled, but she nodded. "I know," she whispered. "I don't expect you to forgive me today, but I want to try, if you'll let us." Ava spoke up, her voice gentle. "I told them they had to come here, Chloe, not just to apologize, but to prove they mean it. I suggested therapy, a family counselor. I think we need help to fix this, all of us." I looked at her, my fierce little sister, and felt a spark of hope, small but stubborn. Therapy wasn't a magic fix, but it was a start, a way to unpack the mess we'd all been carrying. I took a deep breath, weighing the years of hurt against the possibility of something new. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll try therapy, but I'm not promising anything more than that." Mom's eyes lit up, tears spilling over, and David exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. Ava reached for my hand, squeezing it tight. "Thank you," she said softly. I nodded, still unsure, but there was something different in the room. A crack in the wall between us, letting in a sliver of light. We sat there for a while, not saying much, just letting the moment settle. Mom and David didn't push, didn't ask for forgiveness. They just stayed, and for the first time in years, it felt like they were seeing me, not the shadow they'd cast me as. The next week, we booked our first session with Dr. Karen Brooks, a family therapist Ava found online. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to being the girl who begged for a place in their family. If we were going to rebuild, it had to be on my terms, with honesty and accountability. I'd spent too long giving pieces of myself to people who didn't value them. Now, I was ready to protect what I'd built, even if it meant walking away again. Therapy started on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, and I walked into Dr. Karen Brooks' office feeling like I was stepping into a minefield. Dr. Brooks was in her 50s with a calm voice that could cut through tension like a knife. Mom, David, Ava, and I sat in a circle, the silence thick enough to choke on. Dr. Brooks didn't waste time. "Let's start with why you're here," she said. "Chloe, what do you need from this?" I looked at my hands, the words stuck in my throat. Finally, I said, "I need to know why I was always the one you could throw away, why I never mattered enough to fight for." The room went still. Mom's eyes welled up and David shifted uncomfortably. Ava gave me a small nod like she was saying, "Keep going." Dr. Brooks turned to Mom. "Ellen, how do you respond to that?" Mom took a shaky breath. "I was scared," she said. "After your dad died, Chloe, I was so afraid of losing everything again. David's stability, his home, it felt like a lifeline. I thought if I kept the peace, I could keep us all together. But I see now I was pushing you away instead." Her voice broke, but I didn't soften. I'd heard excuses before. I needed more. Over the next sessions, we dug into the past, and it wasn't pretty. I brought up the pocket watch incident when I was 14, the one that got me sent to Aunt Nora's. "You let them blame me," I said, looking at Mom. "Ryan and I were both messing around, but I was the one they called reckless. You didn't say a word." Mom's face crumpled. "I was wrong," she said. "I should have stood up for you. I was so afraid of rocking the boat with David's parents, I let you take the fall." David spoke up, his voice low. "I'm guilty too, Chloe. My parents controlled me my whole life, threatened to cut me off if I didn't follow their rules. When they turned on you, I stayed quiet because I thought it'd keep things calm. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you." He paused, his eyes red. "I didn't just fail you as a stepdad. I failed you as a person. For the first time, I saw him not as the distant man who'd ignored me, but as someone who'd been trapped in his own way, just like I'd been." Dr. Brooks didn't let anyone off easy. When Mom tried to explain away her silence, saying she was just trying to hold the family together, Dr. Brooks cut in. "Are you justifying the pain you caused, or are you owning it?" Mom froze, then whispered, "Owning it." It was the first time I heard her take responsibility without a but attached. We started small traditions outside therapy to rebuild. Once a month, the four of us had dinner together. No talk of money or David's parents, just stories. Ava's latest art project, Mom's attempts at gardening, David's new job at a smaller garage. The first dinner was awkward, silences stretching too long, but Ava kept things light, teasing me about my terrible spaghetti sauce. Slowly, it got easier. Mom stopped brushing off my feelings, started saying, "I'm sorry," without hesitating. David opened up about his childhood, how his parents' threats had shaped him into someone afraid to speak up. I didn't forgive them yet, but I started to understand. One evening, after a session, Mom pulled me aside and handed me a letter, her handwriting neat on the envelope. "I wrote this for you," she said. "Every time I failed you, every moment I should have been there. It's not an excuse. It's a promise to do better." I didn't read it right away. It sat on my desk for days, a quiet weight. But knowing she'd taken the time to face her mistakes meant something. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was a step. Ava was the glue, as always. She'd text me after sessions, checking in, or show up with coffee to talk about nothing and everything. One night, at our monthly dinner, David brought up a memory I'd forgotten, how I'd once drawn a cartoon of him fixing a car, back when I was 12, trying to connect. "I kept it," he said, his voice soft. "It's in my toolbox. I should have told you then how much it meant." I blinked back tears, caught off guard. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was honest, and that was more than I'd ever gotten from him. Therapy wasn't a cure-all. Some days, I left Dr. Brooks's office raw, old hurts bubbling up like they'd never left. But other days, I felt lighter, like we were untangling a knot that had been tied too tight for too long. We weren't a family yet, not the way I'd dreamed of as a kid. But we were trying, and for now, that was enough to keep me in the room. 6 months into therapy, I was starting to feel like we were making progress, slow as it was. Mom was owning her mistakes more, David was opening up, and Ava kept us grounded with her stubborn hope. But there was still a piece missing, a shadow hanging over us. Ryan, my stepbrother, who'd been a stranger to me since we were kids. He hadn't joined our sessions, hadn't reached out, and I hadn't asked about him. He was part of the past I'd tried to leave behind. The kid who'd pointed fingers and laughed when his grandparents sent me away. So when Dr. Brooks suggested inviting him to a session, I froze. "Why?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. "He's never cared about me." Ava leaned forward, her eyes earnest. "He's different now, Chloe. I've talked to him. He wants to be here." I doubted it, but Dr. Brooks nodded. "Sometimes, facing the people who hurt us most can unlock what's stuck," she said. I didn't trust Ryan, but I trusted Ava, so I agreed, bracing myself for whatever came next. The following week, Ryan walked into Dr. Brooks' office, and I barely recognized him. At 21, he wasn't the smirking teenager I remembered. His shoulders were hunched, his hands fidgeting, like he was as nervous as I was. He sat across from me, avoiding my eyes at first. Dr. Brooks didn't let the silence linger. "Ryan," she said, "why are you here?" He took a deep breath, his voice low but steady. "Chloe, I owe you an apology. Not just for the little things, like being a jerk when we were kids. For everything. I treated you like you didn't belong, and I let my grandparents make it worse. But it wasn't just me being a brat. There's something you need to know." I stiffened, my heart pounding. What could he possibly say to change the years of hurt? "When we were kids," he continued, "my grandparents pulled me aside right after Dad married Ellen. I was 12, maybe 13. They told me if I got close to you, if I treated you like family, they'd cut me out of their will. They said you were an outsider, that you'd ruin everything." I was scared, Chloe. I didn't know what a will really meant, but I knew they controlled our lives. Dad's job, our house, everything. So I pushed you away. I blamed you for things, made you the bad guy, because it was easier than standing up to them. The room was dead quiet. I stared at him, my mind reeling. All those years I'd thought Ryan hated me, that his cruelty was personal. But he'd been a kid, caught in the same trap I was, manipulated by the same people who'd cast me out. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice cracking. "You could have said something. He looked up, his eyes glassy. I was ashamed. By the time I realized how wrong it was, you were gone. You left for college, and I didn't know how to fix it. When Dad told my grandparents he was done with their rules, it hit me. I'd been hiding from you too. I don't want to anymore. I want to be your brother, if you'll give me a chance." Mom reached for my hand, and I didn't pull away. David's face was tight, like he was reliving his own guilt. Ava watched me, her expression soft but steady. Dr. Brooks spoke gently. "Chloe, what's coming up for you right now?" I swallowed hard, the weight of Ryan's words sinking in. "I'm angry," I said. "Not just at you, Ryan, but at all of it. I thought you chose to hurt me. Now I see you were stuck too. But it doesn't erase what happened." "I know," Ryan said, his voice breaking. "I'm not asking you to forget. I just want to start somewhere." Dr. Brooks suggested we keep talking, and over the next few weeks, Ryan joined our sessions. He shared more. How his grandparents' threats had shaped his teenage years. How he'd envied my independence when I left for Austin. I started sharing too, telling him about the nights I'd cried over his taunts, the loneliness of feeling like I had no brother. Outside therapy, Ryan and I took small steps. We grabbed coffee one day, just the two of us, talking about music and work. He was studying engineering, quieter than the cocky kid I'd known. We weren't close, not yet, but the bitterness I'd carried was loosening. His presence changed things. Mom and David seemed lighter, like a missing piece had clicked into place. For the first time, I saw a family that might include me, not as an afterthought, but as someone who belonged. A year later, I'm sitting in my Austin apartment, a photo pinned to my fridge. Me, Ava, Mom, David, and Ryan at a Bright Pulse campaign launch. We're smiling, not perfect, but trying. Mom still fumbles sometimes, her old habits creeping in. David's learning to speak up. Ryan and I are navigating what it means to be siblings, and Ava's the heartbeat keeping us together. We're not the family I dreamed of as a kid, but we're something real, built on choices, not just blood. I've learned that family isn't a house you're born into, it's a promise you make every day. To show up, to listen, to own your mistakes. I had to walk away, to say enough, to find my worth outside their shadows. That courage changed everything. It showed me I deserve love that doesn't demand I shrink myself. And when I stood tall, the ones who'd hurt me started to learn what love really means. Not every story gets this chance, and not every family deserves it. But if the people who broke your heart can stop, say sorry, and listen without defending, maybe they're worth a second look. More than that, you deserve peace, even if it comes late. I'm not the girl who was erased on Thanksgiving. I'm Chloe, a woman who loves herself fiercely and knows family is where you're chosen every single day. What about you? Have you ever had to set boundaries or rebuild with family? Share your story below and follow along for more raw, honest tales of healing and hope.